Hey y'all, it's Fox. I want to talk about 3D printing. 3D printing is one of those future promises that was actually kept, unlike say, hoverboards. It's been a few decades since this tech became mainstream, and as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the technologies currently in the wild that has lived up to its hype. Like many of the technologies we enjoy, 3D printing had its debut in science fiction writing. It was first referenced in a story, Tools of the Trade, by Raymond F. a popular science fiction writer from the 1950s, but this science fiction has become science fact and has changed our world for the better. When I first learned of the tech, I immediately dove in and purchased a 3D printing kit, a MakerBot, to mess around with. The MakerBot was one of those kits you had to build yourself. I spent a good 40 hours assembling the printer, only to come to the realization that all I could produce was little bits of plastic junk that I could purchase at a dollar store for a fraction of the price of printing it. I was a little disappointed, but it was a great introduction to how the tech worked, and even though that printer's eventual fate was on a junk pile, it left a big impression on me that lasts to this day. In the subsequent years, we've seen 3D printing applied in ways many never imagined, and I'm going to showcase some of its more astounding applications and implications today. But before we get into this, I would like to thank everyone who has subscribed. I'm having a blast putting these videos together, and it wouldn't be near as fun without you. Thank you. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'm actively growing this channel and would love for you to be part of the conversation. But moving on. One of the more astounding ways I've seen 3D printing being applied is in the healthcare field. I've been looking for a story from well over a decade ago that has stuck with me. I haven't been able to find it, but here it is in a nutshell, from what I can remember. It was about a young man who suffered with a birth defect. He was missing an important part of his urinary tract, which left him in dire straits. Enter 3D printing. Doctors 3D printed the offending part in plastic, then allowed stem cells to grow across it like scaffolding. Once the new part was fully grown, they implanted the new tissue into the young man and cured him entirely. This was one of 3D printing's early wins in the healthcare field, and even more astounding accomplishments have followed, in spades. 3D printing has allowed people to take their healthcare needs into their own hands and literally hack their own bodies. A man by the name of Paul Heathcote was assaulted in the late 1980s, and the injuries he endured left him with chronic pain and discomfort. No matter how many x-rays he received or how intrusive his medical team got, they were unable to identify the source of his chronic condition. Enter 3D printing. Heathcote was not satisfied with the medical professional's approach and took it upon himself to figure out what was going on with him. He completed a 3D reconstruction of a CT scan he had previously had completed and discovered something odd. When he took his findings to his doctor, they concluded that he had discovered numerous fractures of his cervical spine. This turned out to be the source of his chronic pain and discomfort. 3D printing technology, in particular scanning, allowed this man to accomplish something in his living room a team of doctors were unable to do with millions of dollars worth of medical diagnostic tools at their disposal. I could easily do an entire video series on how 3D printing has impacted the healthcare field. From customized medical implants to prosthetic limbs, the technology is being leveraged everywhere, and in a few short decades has become an indispensable tool in humanity's fight to stay healthy. Now it's time to get out of this world. 3D printing's promise is to rapidly manufacture practically anything, out of anything, including entire buildings. Numerous outfits across the globe have entered this exciting field, and the designs they are dreaming up are nothing short of astounding. Companies can 3D print an entire home in 24 hours, and a 2,400 square foot fully operating commercial space in under 20 days. I've worked on large commercial real estate projects in the past, and it would take us months to build an office space in an existing building. The 3D printed buildings that have me most excited though are the ones we're going to build on the Moon and Mars. 3D printing is playing a massive role in our ambitions to become a multiplanetary species. Construction on the Moon and Mars is going to look much different from our traditional construction methods here on Earth. First, shipping materials from Earth to the Moon or Mars would be unreasonably expensive and is simply not practical to attempt. 3D printed habitats on Mars and the Moon will have to utilize native materials to these celestial destinations. The high-level ambition is to create autonomous rapid manufacturing technology that would build structures on the Moon and Mars in anticipation of our arrival. The first buildings on Mars will most likely not be built by human hands, but by Martian robots and 3D printers that will be sent months or maybe even years in advance to prepare these cosmic landscapes for our arrival. After a months-long journey through the unforgiving vacuum of space, the first Martian settlers will have homes and spaces to work awaiting their arrival thanks to 3D printing technology. I can't imagine a successful Mars or Moon colony without this tech. Now, the thing that really impresses me about 3D printing is the scale at which the concept has been applied. In reality, 3D printing is still in its infancy, yet it has several different ways its concepts are being applied, unlike traditional printing that is restricted to a small handful of technologies, like inkjet or laser. It seems as though if a material exists, we can 3D print it. From at-home PLA plastics and resin to concrete, wood, and even titanium. If it exists, we can print it. It's this flexibility that is allowing 3D printing to take the world by storm and allows its concepts to be applied in any manner of ways. Now I want to speculate a bit about where 3D printing is going. Remember those pre-built habitats on Mars? Perhaps the most innovative aspect of this plan is the artificial intelligence that will drive these printers and their autonomous operation. I can imagine, in the not so distant future, say by 2035, one will only have to communicate one's intent, and a system utilizing 3D printers and AI will bring that intent to life. Need a pair of winter gloves? A 3D printer will be there to rapidly manufacture them for you in your own home, and they will be the perfect fit as well because the technology will complete a 3D scan of your hands and use those measurements in the design process. Not happy with the look of your new gloves or need them to serve a different purpose? I can see a future where you feed your current materials back into the machine, recycling the mass majority of the base materials to supply you with your new look or use. I can see a future where we drop 3D printers into disaster zones that will rapidly manufacture, out of existing native materials, anything that is needed to address the scenario, from medical equipment to 3D printed nutritional supplements. Sourcing enough personal protective equipment in future pandemics will be a breeze. We have already seen 3D printing's contribution to the current pandemic. 3D printers were there in the early days of COVID-19 to print face shields and other PPE to supply the vulnerable and frontline workers with much needed protection. Children, at home, were printing face shields for the community. This is all thanks to 3D printing. Again, this technology is still in its infancy, and yet is already having a significant impact on the way we approach old and new problems alike. I suspect over the coming years, 3D printers will become an integral part of everyone's day-to-day life and will change manufacturing in ways that we can hardly imagine. Thank you for listening. If you like my work, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. And remember, this ride is not without risk. Be careful out there and take care.